So now that we've tested and fixed links and we've found everything that we needed and replaced what we didn't want as far as text or links or added links, then now we can actually publish our site. So I'm going to go to my Files panel and I'm going to manage sites and I'll edit. So here I am in my simplified site setup in Dreamweaver CS5, and I'm going to go to my server tab over here and I'm going to click the plus button. So this is going to be a FTP connection, and we have our server name, and we're just going to call that snapshots. Now we need to put in our FTP address. Now in this lesson I'm using my own personal server and I have it hosted. You're going to need to have your own FTP server or host with your own access information. If you don't have a server, just sit back and watch what I do. And that's going to be snapshots.aboxofpixels.com. And that is a subdomain of aboxofpixels.com. Now we need to put our username in here. Now you're not going to be able to see the password at this point. Now I take a look at my web URL, making sure that that looks correct. And now I'm going to click test. And I have connected successfully to my server. So I can say OK. And now save. But let's make sure that we're looking at our more options here. So I'm going to move this up so I can actually see it. So I don't need to use any passive FTP or any alternative FTP. And I don't really need anything necessarily in my advanced tab, except for, again, let's talk about our remote server. So do I want to maintain synchronization information between my local and my remote server? Do I want to automatically upload files to my server and save? Probably not. And this is just really a personal preference. I personally like to do that manually so that I'm putting the files that I know that I want up on the server. And do we want to enable check-in and check-out? So if I select this, then it's going to automatically check out those files when I open something. And when I check out, I'm going to put my checkout name and my email address. And again, this works great if I'm working with a team in multiple locations so that I know when somebody else has a file open and I can only read it. I can't actually write on top of somebody else's information. I could put my testing server in here as well if I needed to. We don't at the moment. So I'm going to uncheck this because we don't need to enable check-in and check-out. And I will click Save. Now I can click Save here. And it's going to recreate that cache for me again. And done. So now I can actually see this in a different view. So if I bring this open, and it's really large, so I will make it a little bit smaller so we can see a little better. So I have a button right here that lets me connect to that remote host. And if I select it now, we'll see that we just have a path there for our site to go into. If I need to refresh the remote server or my files, I can refresh here. This lets me view an FTP log. Well, we haven't put anything up there, so there is no real log as of yet. Making sure that indeed I see my remote server information on the left-hand side. We don't have a testing server, so that button doesn't really do anything for us. And if we'd set up an SVN and had a repository for our versions, we would be able to access that. And here is my get files, and we can put files. I can also just drag them across from my local view over into my remote view. So to do just that, I would just select everything, and then we just drag that over into that folder. It's telling me at the bottom of that window that I have 10 local items selected, and it's going to then ask me whether I want to put those dependent files. Well, we're grabbing everything, so everything goes over at the same time, so we can just basically say no. Otherwise, though, that can be very helpful, making sure that you do add your dependent files. For instance, if you have made some maybe changes to, let's say, your CSS as just kind of a temporary, oh, I'm just trying this out, you wouldn't necessarily want to have that go as a dependent file and overwrite your good CSS. So you really want to make sure that you're paying attention and just don't arbitrarily move everything over and then be sorry that you had moved it over, which is why we have Subversion. So once this puts everything up on my remote server, I can put the URL into my browser and go check it out. And we find our URL. And here is our website. Now that we have our FTP up, we can finally do our site report.